yeah, just I have learned from so many great people. There's been a lot of institutional knowledge we have in our communities that we want to preserve, that we want to pass on. There's been a lot of new ideas from having a lot of new faces and new people at the table. So I said, we should do a session on this. Linda said, great, you should do a session on that. So here we are. So we're gonna go over about this much of a really big topic in the next 50 minutes, okay? I'm gonna share a lot of information with you, and then we're gonna talk about some of that and probably identify a lot of pathways for us to explore this topic at another time in a lot more depth. Hopefully one of you will volunteer for that. All right, there's your disclaimer again, is that you might agree with some of this presentation or not at all, or none of it, or maybe all of it, I don't know, and that's fine, okay? We're gonna lean into a lot of standards or norms when we talk about these generations, and they're not gonna fit, right? So yesterday, if you were in this room, we did a lot of putting people in boxes. Okay, we're going to talk about other boxes again that, of course, as dynamic human beings, you're not going to fit in, okay? But for the sake of this session, it only works if we do that. Our objective is to learn a little bit more about ourselves and the people we work with, what they value, and how to recognize their unique skill sets. I think one of the themes from a lot of district managers, in particular to this session or this WADE, is about employee retention. And this is gonna maybe start some of those conversations about how those strategies need to be unique to who you're talking to, right? Not one size fits all. Yeah, and then pretty much if you don't want to stay for the whole presentation, the spoiler alert here is that to manage a multi-generational workforce better, you just need to talk to people, right? That you want to manage better and realize that they're unique and they value and approach work in a different way. So what is a generation? We're starting at ground zero here. This is for audience participant. Yes. 10 or 20 years.
I think of it in terms of my family. So my daughter and I are like the difference between me and my mom and me and my daughter.
Okay. Yep.
Almost 30 years.
That sort of familial lineage connection. Okay. There's some relationship there. Anybody else? Thoughts? Just shout it out.
I think there's like a legitimate definition of like baby boomers are this year to this year, and then generation X is this to this, and then it goes all the way up to the newest one, which I think is or Z, but they also call themselves I.
We're throwing out some terminology for different types of generations. Yep. Yep. You're definitely that's foreshadowing for this presentation. Great job. Okay. It's people born and living together who share common knowledge and experiences that impact their thoughts, behaviors, values, and beliefs. Okay, that's what a generation is. That is the definition that somebody mentioned. There's a definition for that somewhere. This is it. Somebody else came up with it, just to be clear. Do you know how many generations are currently in the workplace? Here, 4 question mark, 5 question mark. I see a lot of finger math going on. There's a lot of searching the sky for the answer. There's 5. All right, camp 4, raise your hand. Camp 5, raise your hand. Well, you're both inherently right then, right? Okay. There's 5. We may not see a lot of all 5 of those generations, but it's very important for this particular group of humans because one of those generations is really strongly, predominantly board members that we work with. Let's guess who those generations might be. Here's some clues, okay? This is a game. I need Ryan's bow tie game show host attire, okay? Penny loafers, super popular, okay? Single income households are the norm for this generation. Who knows what that photo is?
Yeah.
Iconic.
You know, that's,
Shout out, this is World War II.
Yeah.
it's the recreated photo. Supposedly,
Right.
it is. So, well,
So I wasn't born in this one, Craig, I'm just saying, it's the one I found on Google. Little relationship to our own community, NRCS and CDs were founded. Okay. Familiar face, Martin Luther King Jr. began advocating against segregation. Any thoughts? Anybody know what this generation might be?
Greatest.
What?
Greatest.
Ooh, we got the greatest, we got boomers. They're in between. We call them traditionalists now because they were called the silent generation. That's not as nice. But it is the generation that's between the greatest generation that actually fought in World War II, right? So these are the folks born in that generation. They are not young enough to fight in World War II, but we'll get to other wars later. And they come before baby boomers, right? Another one. Responsible for the bikini, appropriate beach attire. Some of you can thank your grandmas for that. Okay. The women's rights movement and women entering the workforce during this time period. Anybody know what that photo might be of? Were you there? Nice. There was this small festival in upstate New York called Woodstock. About 400,000 of your closest friends. They've out competed way a tiny bit there. Civil rights movements, lots of activism, right? For those of you that don't know, this is a phone. Has a cord, yes, it has the rotary dial. Some of you may have grown up with this. Any guesses?
Baby boomers.
Yep, these are the boomers right here. Hello. Look at that fancy photo. Computers, they started to enter the scene. And those sweet clothes. Okay, the internet was technically born, though definitely still a baby and not functional and can do all the things that it can now as an adult. Okay, all right. Somebody's real good about this. You saw Tupac and Nirvana, you're like, yes.
Yeah, my generation. So,
Ta-da, way to be self-aware. Okay, Vietnam War ended at the beginning of that. Did you know that? Yeah, that's right, audience participation, you got this. Top Gun, iconic. What?
I bet.
Always give them effort.
Yeah.
Okay,
I know. I love it.
the aviators and the jackets, right, like defined fashion in Gen X culture. Nice job. You can have candy, somebody gave me this, I can just start chucking it at you, there you go. There she is, I heard that, yes, there she is. So while many generations, right, are all about the T-Sweezy, she is one of us, just saying. We also invented online dating, you're welcome. Okay, social media, we've grown up with social media. Sorry. We're responsible for the unboot fashion. But we did elect the first African-American president, some of us voting for the very first time. Oh, you're supposed to guess, but I kind of gave that away. Millennials, AKA Gen Y. We straddle that no tech and technology barrier, born before we were all real connected and grew up alongside with technology. This is the next one, okay? iPhones and streaming is now the norm being constantly connected and being able to access information all the time and carry it with you in your pocket, right? And receiving information and content via videos. Created the digital nomad approach to work, or at least really embraced it as a generation, right? Remote work is possible now that the internet has grown up a little bit, right? These are the digital natives. They did not know a world without the technology and pretty much the function that we have it in today. Giggles. I homeschool, I don't really know even what this is, but no, online gaming is now a platform for virtual social connection. And this is one of the ways that this generation experiences connection with other humans. This is a great way to keep in touch with friends. This is a pretty important component. During this generation, mental health and body positivity are super prominent. Lots of shift in focus and interest in workplaces that support these things. Lots of services and conversations are happening around mental health and body positivity. Let's forget how many of these buttons I've clicked. Our little friend COVID-19 is also the first real major crisis of this generation. Any guesses? There you go, we gotcha, Gen Z. And yes, somebody mentioned Gen Alpha. They're not quite working yet. But I'm training my son up, he's got an egg business, I'm just saying. They will be the next. So these are all 5 of the generations. While we might not see all of them in each of our districts, right? These are folks that are still making decisions and collaborating and having conversation. We're gonna delve into each one of these just a little bit more and get to know them. Traditionalists, another big disclaimer, everybody disagrees about the dates, okay? So we round it here, guys, okay? Roughly from 1925 to 45, if you're on the cusp, you can just pick your own generation, it's fine. These folks are the loyal, straightforward, they're tactful, respectful, they come to work, they're professional. I didn't mean that as knock to others. They do physically come to work though. That is a difference from some of the others, right? Okay, today these folks are between 79 and 99, right? These are folks who were shaped by the Great Depression, by World War II, radios and movies, right? They're motivated by respect and recognition. These are things that they value. They want to be able to provide long-term value to their workplaces and their communities. When you're communicating with traditionalists, the generalization is that they prefer personal touches, right? Conversations. They want to know more about you and your family and ask them about them and their family. They want handwritten notes and thank you cards, right? They want to have that kind of connection to know that who you value is them and the work that they are contributing. They came from an era of obedience over individualism. You come in, you fall in line, this is the job description, and this is what you're gonna do. Age equals seniority, that's the workplace they grew up in, whether or not you have the skills, if you've been there the longest. This is where you get your 30-year retirement, 40-year retirement from the same company kind of tenure, right? And hierarchy. Chain of command not lost here, probably started there, or with the greatest, yeah. Not that you're in that generation, correct? Baby boomers, they came next. Birth dates roughly from 46 to 64. Optimistic, work-oriented, somewhat competitive. Oh, Susan, yes. Woo! Ages 54 to 78. This is where the Vietnam War comes in, guys. Yeah, civil rights movement, Watergate. Explain what that is to the younger peers in the room. Okay, we don't have time. Motivated by company loyalty, by teamwork, by duty, to help the common good, right? Direct, efficient communicators, appreciate and like the face-to-face. Okay with the phone, you're gonna see some translation here, this is gonna evolve, right? Pay attention to that. Their worldview is that you gotta pay your dues, okay? You gotta work hard to get to success, which is up here. You gotta put in the time, you gotta put in the work, and you're gonna get the payout, okay? And sometimes that takes sacrifices. This is a generation that you saw has a ton of movements. There's a lot of people paying a big price during this generation to see the outcome. They're willing to work hard and lose some things in the process to get there, okay? That's really important to know about this generation because not everybody has had that experience, right? This is also the generation that won't stop working, which is great. And this is where we're seeing a lot of folks come out of retirement or have second or third careers after they've been retiring from others, right? They plan to work past 70. I just saw the pat on the shoulder, like I'm always gonna be there for you, Ryan. Good job.
No, I was giving snarky looks when you said they won't stop working to Tom.
Oh.
Well, we can all turn around and snarky look at Tom. There we go. Thank you, thank you. And they're looking for working retirements, okay? And part of that is about that sort of relentless work ethic, but also part of it is about that connection, right? That sense of duty and responsibility to community and continuing to keep connected with community. 10,000 baby boomers reach retirement every day. That's a lot of people, right? As still the biggest generation that we've had, employers, we've heard inklings of this, but this is where we're having trouble, right? There's positions open everywhere, everybody's hiring, we're competing, we're trying to backfill, right? For these retirements as the deck shuffles and people move up the ladder. This is where we're hitting some challenges. Thank you for rock and roll and hippies and healthcare. You know, appreciate that. Gen X. Perfect. We've got at least one, we know. 1965 to 1980. Flexible, less formal than the last generations, and definitely more independent. So pay attention to some of the differences between Gen X and Boomers, especially if you have them on your staff. Don't pay attention to that first one. I'm not sure what I copied and pasted there. But they're shaped by things like Roe v. Wade OG, right? It was the first time that passed in 73. They are shaped by the US increasing immigration rates. You see a whole bunch of other cultures start to come into our country. Also, the birth control pill hit the scene, and you're starting to see decline in population rates, both because we're out of the baby boomer era, but also because we have more and different healthcare options. And so we're starting to see some shrinking, right, of generations here. We also start to see a lot of investment in degrees and advanced degrees with Gen X. 28% of them obtaining bachelor's degrees or higher is really starting to become prevalent with Gen X, which is at least like 6% more than the previous generation. Let's see, they are motivated by diversity. So as we start to see a whole bunch of other cultures come into our country, right? That's recognized by this generation right here because they've grown up with a more diverse world. And so that's something that they continue to value in the workplace. We're also seeing a bigger focus on work-life balance. from the prior generation of like, you put in the blood, sweat, and tears, right? To get to the thing. No, we're starting to see like, we want to prioritize more time with family or personal ambitions, over necessarily just loyalty to the company, right? That started way back at the beginning of this presentation. Communication is still efficient, still like that face-to-face. Phone calls become really huge here in Gen X. You need me, give me a call. Willing to change to meet their employer's needs, but resistant if that has an impact on their personal lives. Okay, so we still are seeing people that like show up in person to the office right here with Gen X. But not necessarily do I want that rigid 9 to 5, okay, because I want to go fishing. Where's Josh? Anyway. 55% of founders of startup businesses are Gen X too. So we also start to see that this independence is really paying off with a lot of creativity, right? And innovation and new ideas, okay? By 2028, Gen Xers will outnumber baby boomers. That doesn't mean their generation has grown bigger. They'll just be more of them in the workplace, right? Retirement. No, we're not going all that far. Yeah. It's okay. It's all right. It's not that great of a presentation. All right, millennials, 81 to 96-ish. Competitive, open-minded, achievement-oriented. Maybe they sign up to give 6-weight presentations. I don't know. Thanks for listening to me all week, guys. Ages 24 to 43-ish, right? So Columbine High School shooting happened kind of on the cusp with Gen Xers and millennials, but it's definitely something that defined our generation, and you'll see that starting to rise throughout the next, and that has a big impact on the psychological attachment to coming to big places. 9/11 happened, right? So millennials are the only generation that have that grew up having the pre 9/11 experience and the post. Everybody after millennials has been in the post 9/11 world. Again, with the internet, growing up with the internet, having that perspective of what technology, how limited technology was before that, before cell phones, before smartphones. Yes, we can still remember that. Responsibility, quality managers, and unique experiences are motivators, right? We want to have that challenge and diversity and excitement of trying something new and excelling at it. In terms of communication, this is where we see, of course, with the growth of the internet, big focus on digital. There's a big shift to digital, and this is where we have like that, age-old friction of like, that could have been an email. Man, that could have been an email. You didn't need to comment in me, that could have been an email. So you see a big shift towards that and towards that written communication. Emails are huge, text messages start here, right? I also saw a lot of things for like, an instant messaging, but nobody even uses that. So this is where you also start to see a little bit of detachment, right? From that one-on-one conversation where it's like, ooh, do I want to answer my phone? I'm going to screen that call. I'll just get that later. I'll just send them an email. I don't want to talk to, and this is where you hear a lot from previous generations. Why didn't they just come and talk to me about this, right? We like to seek challenges, growth, and development, and want to enjoy our workplace and our co-workers, okay? So you see a lot of people looking for the harmonious workplace, not the hierarchy and discipline and structure, pain, it's blood, sweat, and tears. Boomers sacrifice to get there. This is where you start to see like, hey, we're all gonna come together. 75% of the global workforce by 2025 will be millennials. Millennials are now the largest generation alive. 12 and 18% respectively of women and men between the ages of 25 and 34, that's supposed to say, because I'm a millennial and did this at 11:30, anyway, live with your parents. It's true. That statistic did hold. We also grew up hearing about things, right? Like the fall of the Berlin Wall, the Chernobyl disaster. We're starting to become a more globalized generation and starting to be aware of things outside of just how do wars impact the home turf, right? But how are things springing up in other areas? And how are we getting and receiving that information in a connected internet world constantly? Enter anxiety. Gen Z, 97 to 2010. This is really the generation that embraces that sort of global perspective, right? Maybe they came up with the act local, think global sort of mentality. It sounds right. Entrepreneurial, very progressive. So now think about the amount of information that's available to these younger people who are between the ages of 14 and 27. I get to say that now, right? Who are constantly hearing about global tragedies, right? All of the things popping up around the world, okay? That's shaping considerably their worldview. They're not hearing one pipeline of information from the newspaper about the thing we're involved in. They're hearing about all of the news everywhere all the time as a young person. This is the post 9/11 era. This is the Great Recession. They've never known life without technology. Again, similar to Gen X, diversity is a huge, and individuality is a huge important component. They're very creative and really like personalization. This is something that they share with the traditionalist generation, is very individual and unique. And they like to be very individual and uniquely valued and approach work in that way. Social media, video messages, text messages, highly digital communications, lots of streaming, lots of things that you can do quickly. So that 7-page email is never gonna get read, I'm just saying. I mean, not even with millennials, that was out a while ago. Let's see. They also prefer millennial managers, right? Because millennials are the ones that are saying, we're gonna come to work, we like each other, we're gonna have fun, we're gonna like the work we do, rather than looking at obedience, and hierarchy, and seniority. And so they tend to gravitate towards younger managers. Again, very innovative, readily adopt new technology. Again, this is your digital nomads. 67% of them, though, do want to work where they can advance skill sets. So because they can plug in and receive information so quickly, and they're used to that model of digesting content constantly, they want to be continuously learning too, and advancing skill sets in new and different ways. 30% believe that employers or the government should pay for full tuition and training for students. They're very invested in learning and want to see global investment in humans and learning. This is a bit of a spreadsheet. This is just so you have this in the presentation. We're not going to go over all of it right now. I'll leave it up there for just a second. And then we're going to have some conversation here in the room. But this is a cross comparison of the four. So digest it, think about it for a little bit, looking at differences or trends in communication, how to acknowledge each of these generations, how to show respect, how they like to be supervised, what they're motivated by, how they work with teams or like to receive feedback, professional development needs, what they want from an organization, and what they value the most. Again, these are just one word in a box for each generation, which is a lot. So please agree, disagree, say this is crazy, throw other ideas out there. This is to start some conversation. And this will be available in the presentation that's uploaded on the website too. We can come back to this if you need. So what I wanna do is start to have some conversation. How do you currently leverage the power of diverse expertise and experiences in your workplace? This is an open-ended question. Think about that, share if you're compelled to do so. Oh, wait. Did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I mean,
Good. You raised your hand and giggled a bunch.
Spell it, Dan, spell it.
I was just gonna say, I used to go to the auction with my dad, and I would be like doing like this, and he'd be like, put your hand down, you know, because I was good on Calvin. So, anyway, so obviously, I mean, I have not a big workforce in my office, but we do go from, boomer to, I guess, right. And so what that has done, it's been transformational for our district, because, the skill sets that person brought with them, ability to understand, everybody that we need to work with was just, not something that we currently have. And so, it's only been a year and a half. And, obviously our district's grown, from a perspective, exponentially. And that. So, and, plus it's just a good.
I'm gonna repeat that for folks on Zoom and then Craig, you're next. Dave from Ferry County shared, even though they have a small group of humans, generationally, they're really diverse, and that's enriched the work that they do, because as we have new generations of landowners and people we work with in the community, now that's reflected within their office, and they can communicate with peers and sort of increase their awareness of the different types of folks in their community that they might serve. That's a paraphrase. Dave, you agree with that? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I got it right. Yes.
Well, I was just gonna say that I think for us, we don't have, I guess we do. We do have the baby boomer to the, I guess, millennial, I don't know, somewhere. I get some of them confused, but anyways,
That's right. You got some Gen Z.
it is really about trying to get the, get people assigned to tasks that are of interest to them and that they have some knowledge of or interest in, because if you do, then it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
But also then listening to their ideas, like David said, there's new ideas, new ways of doing things that, everybody listens to different types of sources of information, and so they bring different.
Someone's brushing their teeth.
Yeah, apparently, big too. It's just really trying to bring in those new ideas from different sources that we wouldn't normally have.
Sora's gonna handle that.
Okay. Thank you, Sora. So that's.
So, in the room here, Craig Okanagan is not the one brushing his teeth. Good job, Sora. That person survived. Shared too, and I'm gonna paraphrase, that with different generations too, you have people that are interested in different things and bring different skill sets. And so it's an opportunity for you to look at the work and the tasks that you have within your organization and assign those to people's strengths and weaknesses. Lots of fresh new ideas too. Perfect. Tom?
You would think we only have a couple of generations in our office. But in reality, we span all ranges throughout the organization. So to leverage the power of all those people, I don't assume I know the answer. even though I probably do, I don't assume I know the actual right answer, and I ask for lots of advice. Many of you receive my phone calls or texts or emails, even social media, asking for your advice, your thoughts, your input before we arrive at a decision, and it usually ends up being a better decision.
Tom shared for those on Zoom that can't hear, that he has reached out in a variety of modes of communication reflected on the screen here to a wide variety of generations to solicit feedback about issues or challenges or projects. And it ends up becoming a much more well-rounded solution in the long run. Fair assessment of what you said? Okay. What challenges? Some of these don't make sense. Okay, what challenges have you had with the multi-generational workforce within your organization? Sorry, folks on Zoom, that's what that means to say. I should have proofread this. Tom, and then over here.
Yeah, it's a weird one. We learn in different ways.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, so I came out of the last part of the boomer generation. It was rote memorization in school and some critical thinking. You get to the millennials, they don't need that. I got the internet, man. Everything's it's right here. So they don't have all that tabular stuff, but they pick it up so fast. And I see that collision often happening in board meetings, especially when there are other folks present. Where, well, I know this because I know this versus, well, I know this because it's right here on my phone, right now. It's current, it's real.
Yeah.
So it's a strange point of friction.
Yeah, that's a really interesting observation that boomers and prior generations, when they were schooled, it was memorizing information. So there's a lot of retention and knowledge there. And future generations were taught how to learn and find information. And so not necessarily do they have that knowledge filed away already, but they can find it at the touch of a button with their fingertips. And so that's an interesting dynamic between those two and has a lot of interesting conversations. For sure. Yes.
Our district is doing a lot of culture work, and that work is so important and it takes time. And a lot of our X and Y's, or let's see, Y's and Z's, sorry, want that work to happen really quickly.
Yeah.
And it takes time to integrate that and that new way of thinking and approaching things, or things like promotions, they want them really fast.
Yeah, younger generations on that list are used to instantaneous as a thing, right? You're getting instant food, you're getting instant information, you have instant access to answer any question that you ever wanted to know the answer to. And so waiting and gradual processes sometimes seem painful. We're not willing to put in that work, I'm just saying. No. And so when you're working through complex issues, like you mentioned, you're doing diversity work in your district, some of those things take time. They take patience. Sometimes you have to wait for that promotion. You have to work towards that. And that can be harder for younger generations. Absolutely. Yeah.
Differences in the thought process of hard work equals good pay and instant agricultural good pay before they do that.
Yep. That's an interesting one. So, and depending on where you're at in generations, that argument looks really different. So there was a comment made about hard work equals good pay, or I've been schooled and I'm out of college now and I deserve good pay. You're seeing a lot of things there. You're right. There's definitely generations prior that understood and they got in, maybe they weren't schooled, right? We saw that big boom in education as well with Gen X, who said, I got to get in early with a company. I'm going to work up the ladder. I'm going to do my 30 years. I'm going to retire, super loyal to that company. I understand that I'm going to move through these steps methodically and hard work is going to pay off and it's going to equal good pay. There was a trajectory right there. That becomes so much more fluid, right? As generations go on. And people are doing a lot of different things to advance their benefits or their pay, and their values of those things are changing too. Younger generations, especially Gen Z, are, and even millennials, are sacrificing pay in some areas for flexibility of the workplace. Well, and Gen X too, or for unique experiences. I could do this job and work in the jungle of Costa Rica, and that's a little less, but that's pretty cool. Or this one and make a little bit more. So the thoughts about security and stability from the prior generations that came from things like the Great Depression have really changed. So there is that mindset. There's also, with the individualism over sort of the obedience model, there's a whole lot more self-advocacy. You see a lot of young people standing up for themselves as individuals rather than a collective, a whole lot more. So they're advocating for, I think I will do that job for this much actually, or I'll go somewhere else. And so employers are seeing that and having a harder time because maybe you can't afford what people are willing to work for. So there's a whole lot to that one. That was a great comment, Anisha, because that's a super complex one. Ellen.
I guess I'll just throw out the thing that concerns me most is that people are working for money rather than working for doing something that they enjoy doing. And usually you want to find that combination, and usually there are resources because in doing what they like, they are accomplishing things. So the fact that you want the money, money is your objective. Is not really conducive with the type of work that I see CDs doing.
Well, and I think that's actually one of the biggest adjustments as the generations progress. People are looking to make a global impact, do good things for the environment. Gen Z is one of the most environmentally conscious generations, and they're entering the workforce. And we saw a lot of other generations start a lot of movements that impacted all of the work that we do in conservation. So that concern I think is real, and I think that hopefully there's a lot more opportunity moving forward with people wanting to find work they're passionate in, and prioritize that in their contribution over pay. But it's really tangled. Sam, and then we'll,
I would say too that younger generations are seeking opportunities with higher pay out of necessity. And college is more expensive than it's ever been. The difference between college and income is the greatest difference between income and rent is the greatest it's ever been. And so it is less about, for like just a desire to have more and more of a desire to be able to survive without, which is very challenging.
That was such a great point that Sam, thank God you're at my district, brought up. I should have had you up here with me, maybe we would have spelled things right. Anyway, mentioned that also Gen Z is entering this super expensive world. They've got a giant debt load from the higher than high costs of higher education, the most that they've ever been. And so they're just trying to survive with rent that is so much more expensive. There's, more commute time. We have a bigger population. They have a lot more expenses, and it's a lot more complex than past generations. And so the amount that they need to even live and survive is a lot more for the same type of work. Yes.
The one that I find fascinating is the difference in how much different generations want to talk about feelings and, create staff agreements where we're talking about, promises to each other in ways that I feel like the older generations just set as expectations and don't ever discuss.
Yeah.
So that sort of collaborative spirit, but also the feelings piece is fascinating to me.
Yeah, also a great point. When we started this, right, with the traditionalist generation, we started with this mindset of like societal norms and a societal contract. It was just understood that you operated this way when you're in public. It was common courtesy, phrases like that, right? It was public decency. You just did these things and you definitely didn't do those, right? And so as we became more individualized, right? And less of this homogenous society, a lot of that changed. And so now we're redefining, we all value different things. We've got more diversity, we've got more generations in the workplace. We're creating code of conduct. We're saying, what do we want out of that? And can we still all agree that those are the same things? We have run over time on this presentation, so I know you guys have great conversations. Here's some references. It'll be posted.